Democrats. You are all looking so good tonight. And it is such a joy to be here with all of you again. I apologize, I am obviously not Eddie Rodriguez, but he is going to come out soon, and I'm sure he'll have some incredible words of encouragement for each and every one of you. Of course, 2 years ago, it was with tremendous pride that I accepted your nomination in our run for governor here in Texas. And with that nomination, I agreed to carry the values of the Texas Democratic Party with me into the general election. The promise that in this state, no one, no matter who they are, no matter how rich or poor, no matter the color of their skin, their gender, their culture, their religion, and no matter who they love, the promise that no one in this state gets left behind or counted out. 2 years later, here we are. And with Republicans in charge, I am disappointed to see that our values have been rejected and ignored. We've seen continued assaults on our reproductive freedoms, on women's access to health care, the failure to expand Medicaid so that families could be covered and billions of dollars in our revenues would be returned to this state. The failure to invest in our schools or in full-day pre-K. The hostility shown to certain people of this state based on their immigration status or their sexual orientation or identity or gender. The failure, in short, to assure that the promise of opportunity and equality for all would be realized. And so, are we disappointed? You bet. But as I said on the night of that gubernatorial election 2 years ago, we cannot afford to be discouraged because there is simply too much at stake. Simply too much riding on all of our shoulders and our ability to drive the change that we want to see. When I feel the tug of discouragement, and I'm sure you've all felt it, or the pull toward complacency, or worse, toward cynicism and pessimism, I need only think back to that magical night in the Texas Capitol almost exactly 3 years ago today, when people came together by the thousands and collectively we proclaimed enough. A moment when we decided that it wasn't enough to be mad or disappointed. A moment when we understood that action had to follow our emotion, that we needed to engage in doing something rather than just talking about it. I've seen that moment played out again and again in the efforts of the people who worked in my campaign and in Leticia's, in the protest that was staged by young Sadie Hernandez, who camped outside the governor's mansion for over 2 weeks in an attempt to try to prevent the cut to women's breast cancer screens in this state. In the Democratic members in the Texas House and Senate who have worked so hard to restore the education funding that were cut in 2011 and that have left our schools and our children without the supports that they need. In the hard work and the resources that have been spent to restore access to the ballot box by overturning Texas voter ID law. And beyond Texas, in the almost 15-hour filibuster conducted just 2 days ago by Senator Chris Murphy and his colleagues in the U.S. Senate, all of whom came together and said enough to the unfettered access to weapons in this country and the innocent lives that have been lost because the NRA's power has trumped what is in the best interests of our people. The task that we face here, our collective belief that we can turn Texas blue and advance our values, that is a realizable dream. And I want you to know, I believe as strongly today as I did 2 years ago in our ability to accomplish that goal. Because of you, we've moved the ball. We've brought new and a lot younger energy into our party. We've educated people about what's at stake. We've gotten up from our sofas and we've done more than talk. We've knocked on doors, we've made calls, we've registered voters. We've done, and we will continue to do our part. Our task ahead is to help each and every person in this state understand the value of their voices, that their voices matter, and that with the expression of their voices at ballot boxes across this state, we can realize and will see the Texas that we want to see. Accomplishing that goal starts with our belief in the possibility of realizing that goal. In the words of this amazing little 11-year-old girl that I just heard speak at the United States of Women Conference in Washington, D.C., Michaela Ulmer, she said, "We need only to be fearless, to believe in the impossible, and to dream like a kid." Well, our next speaker, and the person who I have the honor and privilege of introducing, is the embodiment of just that sort of fearless optimism. Who, at age 26, was elected to the San Antonio City Council as its youngest member in history. Who, as a 5-year mayor of this great city, was fearless in pushing for a voter-supported tax increase that would invest in our most precious asset, our children. Children who knew that their mayor believed in them enough to ask voters to invest in their full potential, beginning with full-day pre-K for every 4-year-old to get off to the good start that they need. A mayor who understood that investing in this city's brainpower was not only good for its children, but for its future workforce and the strength of its economy. A mayor who guided a community-inclusive vision for the city's future through the creation of SA 2020, which set the framework for improving the quality of life for all of San Antonio's residents. A mayor who fought for LGBTQ rights and who actively opposed Texas law banning same-sex marriages. Along with his identical and equally promising twin Joaquin, the sons of a single mother from whom they both learned the values of the Democratic Party and the power of political advocacy and organizing. A graduate of Stanford undergrad and Harvard Law Schools, the first Hispanic to deliver the keynote address at the Democratic National Convention. A person who demonstrated the kind of leadership and vision that captured the attention of President Barack Obama and was picked by him to serve this country. A person who has worked to chart history by actively supporting Hillary Rodham Clinton's election as our first woman president. A person about whom, when asked whether she would consider him as her VP pick, said, "I'm going to look really hard at him for anything, because that's how good he is." Fellow Democrats, we've looked hard at him. We believe in him. We know his moral compass and his leadership skills. And we Texans understand him to be an essential part of the future, not only of this state, but of this country. Please join me in welcoming your hero, our hero, Secretary Julian Castro.